The story of Rick Harrison is often remembered through the bright, familiar image of a Las Vegas pawn shop and a television show that turned everyday bargaining into global entertainment. Yet behind that public version is a life shaped by uncertainty, early struggles, and constant reinvention. The narrative that follows is not just about business success or television fame, but about how personal history, family dynamics, and repeated losses can shape the way a person makes decisions over decades. Rick's journey is frequently described as a classic American success story, but it is also a story marked by complexity, where achievement and hardship exist side by side. From childhood instability to adult fame, from private grief to public attention, his life reflects how unpredictable circumstances can influence ambition and survival. What people see on screen is only a fraction of the whole picture, and much of the real story lies in quieter moments that never reached audiences. Understanding this requires looking beyond the persona of a television figure and instead examining the layered experiences that contributed to his path. Childhood formed by change and early loss, Rick Harrison's early years were shaped by constant movement and instability, as his family searched for stability in different places. This lack of a fixed environment created a childhood where adaptation became necessary rather than optional. Instead of a predictable upbringing, he experienced frequent change, which influenced how he learned to observe people and situations carefully. One of the most emotionally significant early events in his life was the loss of his younger sister, Sherry, who passed away at a very young age due to complications related to Down syndrome. Even though this tragedy occurred when Rick was still a child, its emotional weight became part of the family's private history and contributed to a quieter, more reflective atmosphere at home. Combined with financial uncertainty and relocation, these experiences created a sense that stability was something fragile rather than guaranteed. Rather than enjoying a conventional childhood structure, Rick grew up in an environment where resilience was learned through necessity. These early experiences did not define him in a single direction, but they helped shape a mindset that was always alert to change, risk, and the need to adjust quickly to shifting circumstances in life. Health challenges and a developing sense of resilience. Alongside emotional and family difficulties, Rick Harrison also faced significant health challenges during his childhood, including epilepsy. These episodes were not just physical events but also psychological experiences that influenced how he saw control, uncertainty, and vulnerability. Living with a condition that could disrupt daily life at any moment created a constant awareness of unpredictability. For a young person, this often translates into heightened caution, introspection, and sometimes anxiety about the future. At the same time, it also builds a form of resilience, as coping becomes a daily practice rather than a distant concept. Rick's early interest in reading and learning became a way to mentally escape physical limitations and unpredictable health episodes. Books and curiosity offered a sense of structure that real life sometimes lacked. Over time, this combination of medical struggle and intellectual curiosity helped form a personality that was both observant and adaptive. Instead of relying on a traditional path, he began developing his own methods of understanding the world. These formative experiences contributed to a mindset that would later prove important in business environments, where quick judgment, reading people, and managing uncertainty are essential skills for survival and success. Youthful hustles and early lessons in risk. As Rick Harrison moved into his teenage and early adult years, his life took a direction that was far from conventional education or stable employment. School did not fully capture his attention, and he gradually moved away from formal academic structures. Instead, he entered a world of informal business activity, where learning came from direct experience rather than textbooks. He explored various ways of making money, including buying and selling goods in environments where rules were not always clear or strictly followed. Some of these early activities, by his own later acknowledgement, involved questionable or gray area transactions, reflecting a time when survival and opportunity often outweighed long-term planning. These experiences taught him how to assess value quickly, understand negotiation, and recognize what people wanted in a deal. More importantly, They shaped his understanding of risk as something manageable rather than purely dangerous. Instead of avoiding uncertainty, he learned to operate within it. Building a pawn shop in Las Vegas. By the late 1980s, Rick Harrison and his father, Richard, the Old Man Harrison, decided to formalize their business instincts into something more structured and legal. They identified Las Vegas as a place where unconventional businesses could thrive due to its constant flow of visitors, financial risk-taking culture, and demand for quick cash solutions. In 1989, they opened a small pawn shop that would later evolve into a globally recognized brand. The early version of the shop was modest, lacking the polished appearance it would later become known for. It was a functional space designed to facilitate loans, purchases, and resale of items brought in by customers facing financial needs. The pawn industry itself is built around immediate liquidity, often serving individuals who require fast financial assistance without traditional banking options. This reality means the business operates at the intersection of opportunity and hardship. For Rick, this environment made sense because it combined negotiation, valuation, and human psychology. Understanding the nature of the pawn business. The pawn industry is often misunderstood by outsiders, and Rick Harrison's business experience reflects this complexity. On one hand, pawn shops provide a valuable service by offering quick loans and opportunities for people to access cash without traditional credit systems. On the other hand, they are sometimes viewed critically because they operate in spaces where customers may be under financial pressure. Rick's approach to the business involved balancing these two perspectives. He developed a strong understanding of item valuation, historical significance, and customer psychology, which allowed him to negotiate effectively while maintaining business sustainability. Each transaction required assessing not only the physical value of an object, but also the urgency and circumstances of the person bringing it in. This dual awareness became central to how the shop operated. Over time, the business also evolved into a place where historical artifacts and unusual items were treated with curiosity rather than purely financial interest. Rick's interest in storytelling added a unique dimension to the pawn process, transforming transactions into educational moments. This blend of commerce and narrative eventually became one of the defining characteristics of the business, setting it apart from more traditional pawn operations in the industry. Growth from local shop to cultural curiosity. As the years passed, the pawn shop gradually developed a reputation beyond its immediate neighborhood. Located in Las Vegas, a city known for constant tourism, the store began attracting visitors who were curious about unusual items and stories behind them. Rick's ability to explain objects in simple, engaging ways helped transform the shop into something more than a financial service location. It became a space where history and commerce overlapped. Customers brought in coins, memorabilia, weapons, documents, and unusual collectibles, each with its own background. Rick's curiosity about these items added depth to the business experience, turning negotiations into conversations about history and personal memory. This approach helped distinguish the shop from others and laid the groundwork for media interest. As more people visited, the shop gained visibility as a place where everyday objects could carry extraordinary stories. This organic growth was not initially driven by media strategy, but by word of mouth and increasing public interest. Over time, this evolving identity helped position the business as a potential subject for television, even though that possibility was not immediately obvious at the beginning of its expansion. The rise of pawn stars and unexpected fame. The transformation of the pawn shop into a television phenomenon began in the late 2000s when producers saw potential in its unique environment. The idea of filming real transactions and real objects being evaluated in real time became the foundation for a new kind of reality programming. When the show eventually launched as Pawn Stars, it quickly gained popularity due to its blend of history, negotiation, and personality-driven storytelling. Rick Harrison became a central figure because of his calm delivery, historical explanations, and ability to maintain engagement during negotiations. Viewers were drawn not only to the items but also to the stories behind them. The show presented a version of reality that felt educational yet entertaining, creating a wide audience appeal. As popularity grew, the shop itself became a tourist destination, with visitors waiting outside to experience the locations seen on television. Fame, perception, and questions of reality. With the success of Pawn Stars, public attention increased significantly, and so did scrutiny. While many viewers enjoyed the educational and entertaining format of the show, others began questioning how much of what appeared on screen was spontaneous versus planned. Reality television often involves production structure, timing adjustments, and curated interactions, and Pawn Stars was no exception. This led to debates about whether the show represented authentic business operations or a dramatized version designed for television audiences. Rick Harrison generally acknowledged that television requires production planning, but maintained that the core knowledge, negotiations, and items were real. Despite this, the perception of staged interactions persisted among critics and former visitors. This tension between reality and entertainment became part of the show's identity. For Rick, the challenge was balancing the integrity of his business with the expectations of a global audience. The result was a hybrid space where education, commerce, and performance overlapped. Over time, this blending of roles became normal within the industry, but it also contributed to ongoing discussions about authenticity in reality-based programming and how audiences interpret what they see on screen. Personal life struggles and family losses. Behind the public image of stability, Rick Harrison's personal life included multiple marriages, family tensions, and significant emotional challenges. Relationships changed over time, influenced by the demands of business, travel, and public attention. Like many individuals balancing professional success with private responsibilities, maintaining long-term stability proved difficult. In addition to marital changes, one of the most significant emotional events in his life was the death of his father, Richard Harrison, in 2018. Known to audiences as, quote, the old man, he was both a business partner and a foundational influence in Rick's life. His passing marked a turning point, as it removed a central figure from both the business and personal structure of Rick's world. Later, the COVID-19 pandemic created financial and operational challenges for the pawn shop, reducing tourism and significantly impacting revenue. These combined pressures affected both business stability and family dynamics. In addition, legal disputes within the family added further complexity, creating public attention around private matters. These events collectively contributed to a period of emotional and professional strain that contrasted sharply with the confident image seen on television. Grief, tragedy, and ongoing change. In 2024, Rick Harrison experienced a deeply personal tragedy with the death of his son, Adam. The loss was widely reported and marked a profoundly painful moment in his life. While details surrounding the circumstances were discussed publicly, the emotional impact was clear, as it represented a loss that cannot be easily processed or resolved. For someone who had already experienced business challenges, family changes, and the loss of his father, this event added a new layer of grief that affected him in a very personal way. In the following years, additional family transitions, including the passing of his mother, further contributed to a period marked by reflection and emotional difficulty. Despite these hardships, life and business continued, as they often do in public-facing careers. At the same time, personal milestones and relationships continued to evolve, suggesting an ongoing effort to rebuild stability. These experiences highlight the complexity of a life lived in both public and private dimensions, where personal loss intersects with professional identity in ways that are difficult to separate. Conclusion and the weight of a public legacy. Rick Harrison's story cannot be reduced to a simple narrative of success or failure. It is a combination of early hardship, entrepreneurial risk, media influence, and personal loss. His journey from a small pawn shop owner to a global television figure illustrates how opportunity and timing can reshape a person's life dramatically. At the same time, the emotional and personal challenges he has faced show that public success does not eliminate private difficulty. The legacy of Pawn Stars remains significant in popular culture, but the man behind it represents something more complex than a television persona. His life reflects the ongoing tension between building something visible and managing what remains unseen. Whether viewed as a symbol of resilience, adaptability, or the cost of ambition, his story continues to evolve. What remains constant is that behind every transaction, every televised negotiation, and every public appearance, there is a deeper human experience shaped by time, relationships, and events that extend far beyond the camera's frame.